Guys, what's going on? This is Matt with Patriots Corner. It's been a little while since I've done a podcast, but we are happy to have guest already. You're back. Former SEAL Dan Cerrillo and now Chief of Staff for American Addiction Centers. Dan, what's going on?
Hey, Matt, how's it going?
It's going great, man. How you been?
Really good, man. Big changes in the last little bit. Massive changes.
Yeah, I could imagine. So wow. So you have completely transitioned, but is it really, a large transition? I mean, judging from your previous job with the SEAL teams, is there a lot that's different with what you're doing now?
Oh, absolutely. Everything's different. As a matter of fact, I invite people to go listen to the last podcast that I did with you. What people don't realize is back then I was a very heavy drinker. I was very angry, full of rage, hatred, everything that goes along with PTSD. And I decided to make some serious changes, go to get some therapy, stem cell therapy, hyperbaric therapy, you name it, the gambit. I've done pretty much everything, and I'm literally a completely new man. I mean, I just feel wonderful,
Wow. So, if you don't mind me asking, when you decided to make those changes, was it difficult for you, coming from your background?
Oh yeah, man, it was the most difficult thing I've ever done. Just first off, admitting that I had a problem. Not just admitting I had a problem, but realizing I was losing control. I literally felt like I was losing my mind. I went from a very high performing person to basically barely able to cope on a day-to-day basis, and I didn't understand why. Like, I literally just was like, I don't know what's the matter with what's going on with me. I can't solve problems. I can't think. I can't read an email. I can't write an email. It was just bad. It was just terrible,
Almost as if something was like lingering and you were unsure what the hell it was, but you knew something was, there was a cloud that something was lingering.
Yeah, it was, I had obviously a ton of stress on me at that time. Like everybody, nothing's different than what I did to anybody, I made it through the war, I feel like, just fine. I did the things there. I did the deed and whatnot. It was dealing with civilian life that was really hard for me. I was very successful in business, and then I wasn't successful. Literally overnight we were crushing life, and then we lose our parking lot to right eminent domain to the city. And within 1 year, our clientele, we'd lost 2/3 of our clients because Seattle, it rains and nobody wants to walk a mile to come work out,
Sure.
A lot of things happened with the business that just really put a foot on my neck that I could not resolve on my own. And I was coaching high school football for the best football team in America. And I was asked to adopt a family for Christmas. I adopted the family, and a year later, they told me that I had broken the Washington State athletic rules by donating Christmas gifts for the family, and I had gotten a charity to donate money to the family for 1 month of rent. The dad turns out to be a real scumbag. He didn't pay the money back, so I paid the money back because it was they wouldn't have given him the money had it not been for me, and apparently that's against the rules. And the final straw was my wife getting very sick with cancer. It literally just felt like the world came tumbling down on me,
Oh God, yeah, man, absolutely.
That all happened in basically a 2-year span, and my way of coping with it was the way I coped with things when I was a SEAL. I drank. And I drank a lot, and by the time I was at my worst state, I was about a bottle and a half tequila a night, sometimes 2 bottles. That was pretty normal.
Yeah.
Drinking 7 days a week, and by the time I really knew I had an issue, I was literally saying I'm not going to drink on Monday. I'm going to do my best to not drink on Monday, and it was literally as if it was between that and jumping off a bridge, like I won't drink, and
yeah,
every single time, and I finally, by chance, got offered an opportunity to go to treatment, an experimental treatment, which was the roughest shit I've ever been through. And I came back as a non-drinker and completely had let go of all my anger, man.
Hell yeah, man, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Is that now? I got to ask you this too, and if you don't want to share, it's completely fine. But when you're going through BUDS training, even taking it back to the SEAL teams, and when you're going through BUDS, do any of the instructors ever make you aware that there might come a time later on throughout life that you might come across some stress and aggravation similar to what you experienced?
No, never was it ever discussed. Nobody even talked about it. As a matter of fact, you were basically ridiculed if you ever admitted you were under stress. And that's one of the things I'm doing now, is I'm making a big push to ensure that the young SEALs that are in the community know what's happening to the men 40 years and above in the SEAL teams, post-SEAL team. I call it the great big lie. It's the great big lie. Is all it is people. I was at a dinner the other night, and this is how angry and pathetic this is, because you know me, I don't bite my tongue. This admiral sat there in front of a crowd full of donors and said, "We don't have a PTSD problem in the SEAL teams." And everybody in the crowd looked at me because they know what I do.
Sure.
I'm like, that's funny, because I've sent 120 guys to treatment this year alone. Every single one of them is over the age of 40, and every single one of them is over the rank of E7. As a matter of fact, we had an admiral throw himself out of a window about 6 weeks ago, and it's just a single incident. No, it's literally right before I got on the phone with you, I was on the phone with a guy who's not doing well, and this myth that SEALs are tougher than everybody else, that this addiction problem, that this PTSD problem exists in young men, boot sailors and boot Navy guys and boot Marines, is a complete and utter lie. The guys who are most affected by it are guys who are 2 or 3 years out of the military. They've lost a sense of identity. They're immersed in the civilian life without any preparation, and nobody ever told them that, hey, drinking's going to kill you one day.
Sure.
Taking massive amount of pills to suppress the massive rage, anger, and hatred that you have, that fueled you for 20 years, is going to destroy you. Nobody's ever talked about that. And now, we have this massive suicide problem in the SEAL teams and the veteran community in general. We're now telling guys it's okay to talk to counselors, whereas before, I can tell you as far back as 2005, when I said I have a problem, they told me to go to the gym, take some Motrin, and suck it up.
Yeah. It's something you say that because not that it's because this is Hollywood, but I was literally you ever seen the show The Sopranos?
Yeah.
When Tony Soprano starts going to therapy, and then he admits to all the guys, like, I'm going to therapy, and they were like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? But in reality, there's nothing wrong with it.
No, and it's funny is I'm like every single other person. I looked down my nose at therapy. I thought it was a joke. I thought it was a complete and utter, like, you were weak, etc. And now, after going through it, now understanding that had I not done what I've done, I would be dead. I get it now. I get that people have issues. People need help, and they just need to talk. And there's professionals out there that just let you talk. And it used to be one of those guys. You think you're the good friend by telling somebody suck it up and, hey, let's just go get fucked up. Let's go drink. You'll be good, man.
Sure.
That chick, she's wrong. It's her fault. And now it's like, you know what? I absolutely have no experience doing it. I shouldn't be doing it. I should be referring it to a professional counselor, and that's their job, to let you listen to your problems. And human nature is to speak. Human nature is to touch and to hold and to kiss and to hug. And it doesn't matter what your job is, man. Everybody, every now and then, needs to talk, get hugged and told, hey, it's normal. You're okay,
Absolutely. And, is that something that where it almost, and I know I'm sure it could relate to absolutely anything, and that's the broad spectrum of the mind and the psychological stuff that plays into it, but do you see a lot of the same issues, like how you said, stripping of an identity, when somebody is doing something repetitively over and over and over for a number of years, and then when they're idle or they're in something completely maybe more lackadaisical than what they were doing, it's more of a suffrage point?
Well, what I really discover, and now this is what I do for a living, right?
Sure.
With American Addiction Center, it's called Battalion. We have an entire hospital devoted just to veterans, first responders, and what I'm finding is it's just like an NFL football player. The day you're injured, the crowd stops cheering, and it's just over. Like, your career is over in an instant. And for a guy to join the military, you go overseas, you're tight with your crew. Males, females, you're tight. Your enlistment comes up, and it's over. And your phone might ring once a week for the first year, then it turns into once a month, then it turns into not at all. And it isn't because the people have forgotten about you. It's they're busy. They're still doing it. Life is secret. There's not so much information they can share, and you're not part of it anymore. And I find that everything is guys and girls become very, very lonely, and they have nobody to associate with. Because in the military, we speak a certain way.
Sure.
Right? We're misogynistic. We're anti-feminine. You name it. We're racist. We're everything, man. There's no holds barred, especially in SEAL teams. We say what's ever on our mind.
Sure.
We laugh about it. We giggle about it. Well, then you become a civilian. You realize you can't even say female, right?
Yeah.
I work in Silicon Valley. You can't even say female, and or else somebody's looking down their nose at you. And so it's a very big culture shock. Like I worked in Silicon Valley for the last 5 years before switching jobs. Prior to that, prior to owning a gym, I had never been around homosexuals before. It was just not part of my world. And so to learn and understand that they're normal people, they're God-loving, they're great people in most cases, but you're always told, they're something's the matter with them, et cetera, et cetera. And you go through life of that's a word you use is derogatory to people, and once you figure out like, oh man, I've been fooled, and it's hard to assimilate into that to go, everybody's normal. Transsexual people that's their personal life.
Yeah.
And that there's nothing to really look down on them for. It's a culture that you were brought up into to go, there's something the matter with them, not something the matter with us. And really what's the matter with us is it's our culture of unacceptance, and all of a sudden you're thrust into the civilian world from a military world, and you're not even given a hose full of, you're thrown in the pool. And you have nobody to talk to. Nobody can understand what's going on in your brain. Nobody understands when you drink, you're loud, you're obnoxious, etc. You're just because they've never been around people like this. And I see it every day. I understand what's going on with guys, and that's what I do for a living now.
Absolutely. And what kind of stuff are you dealing with where in your position, are people coming in and speaking to you or coming to you directly on behalf of issues that they might be suffering from?
Yeah, so it's funny, when you and I did the podcast, a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I at that time, I always wondered why guys wanted me on their podcasts and why people wanted me to do interviews, etc. Because I never felt worthy. I want everybody to know I did nothing special in the SEAL teams. I was merely a janitor. I just cleaned the shit up they told me to clean up. I did the same missions every other guy did. Nothing special, nothing better, nothing worse. So when guys would say, hey, well, on your podcast, whatever, it was always like, why me? There's so many other guys who did so much more than me. Well, what I understand now is that I did those things because, one, I'm a loudmouth, and two, was preparing me to do this, right? It's preparing me to talk about this issue and the associated ramifications of it. And so now guys call me every single day. I'm on the phone with a SEAL Special Forces guy almost every single day, and they're like, hey, Taco, we have a problem. I have a problem. And I sit there and I listen to him, and I tell you, it's so personal to me now. As a matter of fact, I fucked up badly the other day. I failed badly. I was talking to a guy on the phone. I spent about 2 hours on the phone with him, talking about therapy, et cetera, et cetera. I thought that I'd done everything I needed to do. He had agreed to go to treatment, and I got a phone call 2 days ago from his brother, who's a SEAL, and he had murdered his wife and he'd killed himself.
Oh, wow.
And, it's up here in Washington. It's near my home, and it just is like, damn it, man.
Yeah.
Damn it. And I sit there and I can hear the pain in this man's voice.
Mm-hmm.
I knew exactly what was going on with him because he's confused. He's like, I don't get it. I don't understand what's going on with my brain. I'm losing control slowly, and I'm trying to explain, I'm like, listen, you're chemically imbalanced. We're going to help you. We're going to settle things down. We're going to get you off the pills. We're going to get you off the drinking, and I didn't do it fast enough, and that's something that I take very personally, and that's something that, you got this entire military force that he works for at a very secret capacity who missed it.
Yeah.
I'm the guy that he called. His brother called me to help him, and so yeah, this is every single day my phone rings.
And was this someone who was former or active?
So he's a retired guy, but he still worked for the government.
Okay.
Did the same job that he did before, just as a civilian.
Understood. Wow. Now,
That's the thing, you know. So.
Yeah, I mean, in that situation, though, I mean, is that something where, and it's got to be complex and complicated as all hell from time to time. I mean, and you see this stuff. Not that I'm relating your situation that you're in and situations of others and listeners, that they may be into Hollywood, but it's weird in the sense of looking into certain even television shows. Just seeing the breakdown of why somebody wants to do something or why somebody wants to think a certain way or what they're struggling from and what they're dealing with. And is it tough for you? I mean, in order to, I guess, is the natural instinct to want to just immediately listen to all of that individual's problems and not try to connect it to maybe another individual, or is it helpful or beneficial to maybe connect it to somebody else's situation?
No, I don't ever connect them. What I do is I connect them with me.
Okay.
No, because the good and the bad part about me is that the guys from the SEAL teams know who I was, who I'm trying not to be. I should say that I was a brawler, I was a drinker. There's stories about me from the SEAL teams that happened in Iraq. They still tell today. So everybody knows, like, oh, that guy was a barbarian, you know? And so when I call him, I'm like, hey, man, my marriage is good. My family life is good. I've been sober now for over a year. I haven't taken anything so much as an aspirin. I sleep 8 hours a night. I don't dream. My life is quiet. Did they listen?
Yeah.
I tell them this is where I was, because a lot of them saw me in my darkest moments. When my wife was sick, I was flying to San Diego just on whims, just to go drink, because that felt natural to me. Like, I'll just go to San Diego just to get shithouse drunk around my friends, so I didn't have to think about what was going on at home, right? And a lot of my buddies saw me during that time, and I was bad, man. And so now when they talk to me, they're like, I want to be where you're at now. And I'm like, it's simple. And so what I talk to them about is not so much what happened during the war or what they're going through. What I talk to them about is the chemical and hormonal imbalance that's going on within their bodies. Because one thing that people have to understand is special operators are very smart. Most of them have degrees. A lot of them have master's degrees. A good portion have PhDs. So
absolutely,
the way we were talked to from education, like, listen, your testosterone is shit. Your estrogen is through the roof. Your magnesium is probably way too high because all you eat is a red meat diet. Your vitamin D is nothing because we're indoors all day long and we work at night. All these different things, when you start looking at that from a hormonal level, and then I go, okay, inside your brain, if you do a deep brain scan, the front of your brain is black. It's devoid of emotion. The back of your brain is bright red. It's highly agitated, always on response, flight or fight response, ready to go. I was like, no wonder you can't sleep, because you can never relax. You do this for 20, 30 years, and they wonder why guys are having heart attacks in their 30s and their 40s and 50s.
Yeah, it becomes repetitive. It's like it's hard to change.
Well, you know what it is you're just a car, right? The engine's just going to break eventually. Something in the car is going to break, and that's the way I like to talk to the guys. Like, your knees blew out, your tires are worn out. When your brain is, your computer's faltering. And when I explain it to guys like that, and I explain to them, that fixing their testosterone first and foremost, getting their estrogen down, stop drinking, like, just stop fucking drinking. There's nothing good going to come out of it. It's such a massive depressant. It's the worst drug known to mankind.
Absolutely.
And, just getting them to sleep, and that's the biggest thing that people have to understand is, without sleep, you cannot release serotonin. You cannot, you're not getting, your body's not healing, because you only heal when you're sleeping. And so if guys are drinking, they're taking pills, whatever, they never get into deep sleep. They look at their phones at nighttime, the blue light turns their circadian rhythm off, and so I talk to them about little simple tricks, blue light blocking glasses, blue light blocker on their phones. Telling them not to take their phone at night is impossible. So put a blue light blocker on it. dark curtains, little tiny things without massive changes. And I slowly just, each time, then we get into therapy, we get them to stop drinking, then we get into stem cell therapy, then we're in the hyperbaric chamber, we're healing their body, then we start doing the brain treatment center for their brains, and it's a slow, gradual process of really what I call it's the plane flight home, right? It's the plane flight home where now we're going to take our time bringing you back, we're in no rush, and we're going to heal you. We're going to bring you back to your family the right way. Whereas, if you take my case, the last time I came home from Iraq, I literally was in Mosul. I was on a mission. I came home. It was 6 a.m. They said, pack your bags, and I was on a flight. And that night, I was with my wife. And
wow.
I was not in a good way.
So you came from Mosul right directly back?
Right directly home.
Holy shit, man.
Nothing, no break, no nothing. Myself and a guy named Brad Nagel, who you know, we did the very last mission in Mosul while we were during our deployment, and we came home, and I literally laid on my bed, and they came, knocked on the door like, pack your shit, plane will be here in a little while. And so we got on the plane, we flew to Ramstein, bought every single case of beer at Ramstein, flew to Coronado, drunk as a skunk, got off the plane. That's why my wife found me.
Oh, man.
So, and I talk to the wives a lot too, and I just tell them, I'm going to help bring your husband home. He's still in deployment, and I go to treatment with the guys, and I see them. I see the change that happens in them. They go from hardened warriors, and they go back to becoming little boys. And they call me, and they're like, I'm sleeping. My life is quiet. And that's what they need, and that's the one thing I really hope the military looks at things. In the last 2 years of Guy's career, he should just be taken off deployment status. He should be completely removed from deployment status, and he should start out processing 2 years before with counseling, with physical therapy, with physical fitness, because everybody's like, oh, SEALs are in really good shape. Well, you are in really good shape with a broken back, a broken neck, a broken hip, 7 knee operations, both shoulders. My body was destroyed before I ever got out of the teams.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if you remember, a SEAL is nothing but a dog. We're gonna go. We're gonna pull on that leash and tell you, you gotta rip us back, right?
Yeah.
And it's up to the command to say, you're done. For 2 years, you're gonna go to BUDS and be a BUDS instructor, and you're doing nothing more than rehab your body, educate your mind, go to counseling, decompress, so that you can walk out of the military into nice, easy civilian life. And, unfortunately, the military sponsors programs to do it. They don't do it themselves. So there's charitable organizations that are doing it, but they're doing it via fundraising, via grants. That should be the military doing it.
Sure.
We did all this money to get us to be trained. We need to spend some money to get guys to become civilians. And they're just not part of their thought process, And it needs to be, because I sit here in the chair that I sit in today, as the chief of staff for American Addiction Centers, and I sit there and I go, we have a 22 suicide epidemic per day right now. That's going to double in 2020. And everybody looks back at me like, what do you mean? Or 2021. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, we don't understand. I go, in 2021, all those kids to join the military after September 11th are going to retire. A massive outflux of people are going to retire with 20 years in the military. And who are they? They know nothing other than war. Their entire career, they've been at war. How are you going to deal with it if you don't start dealing with it now? And so I was brought into American Addiction Centers to build a veteran program, which we've done very successfully. We're getting ready to expand it to our second hospital. We, to date, since August, we've treated 1,200 veteran days. So we've had 1,200 days worth of treatment that we've given to veterans. And, we're expanding it to the TRICARE now. We're going to fill up one of our hospitals, nothing but dependents now. Because if the member is suffering, so is the dependent. And
that's a big thing too. I think that it's. I'm happy you mentioned that. Yeah, I think that is that a neglected thing also. From what certain people. Or was it? You think the dependent?
I absolutely believe so. The thing is the wives, they sit home waiting for us. They have no idea what we're doing. We come home, and my wife, she knew that the phone rang at a certain time, I was all right. But if the phone rang outside of that, something was bad.
Oh, God.
I had to make those phone calls,
Sure.
And come home, you're a complete and total mess. The more deployments I did, the easier it got. The first deployment I came home, I literally locked myself up for 2 weeks and just drank. I was a complete and utter mess. I had no reason or want to be home. I went back to Iraq 2 weeks after that. By the last deployment, I was down to about 4 days. I would come home, lock myself for 4 days, and then, okay, I'm home. And I try to be normal. But, the wives struggle just as much as we do. They're the ones who know the secrets. They're the ones that know that we sit up all night long drinking, crying. They're the ones that hear us groaning and whimpering when we get out of bed. They're the ones that know that we're slowly losing our minds. Those aren't fallacies. Those are truths. They watch us day in and day out get older and older because there's so much stress on the body that we literally can't fathom what's going on with us. You know what I mean? Like, you don't even. That's the thing is, I had no idea what was happening to me. I just knew that slowly but surely I was losing control, and I went from like the number one employee at my company to being told the only reason you have a job right now is because your wife is sick, and I couldn't understand.
Oh God, yeah, that's rough.
I'm like, I don't even know what's the matter with me. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I'm trying so hard, but coming back from therapy, I'm like, holy shit, what a jerk. No wonder everybody was mad at me. I treated everybody like crap. I was always mad. I was always pissed. I was always angry. I was snapping at people. I had no problem telling people to go pack sand. I was a completely unpleasant person.
Yeah.
Even though, and my answer to that was, hey, I know how to become pleasant. I'll just smoke weed. That was literally my answer. So, and everybody's like, oh my God, when you're stoned, you're really nice. Right? And so
then you start thinking then that's freaking you out too, because you're like, shit, I can't be high all the time.
Right, and then that literally, that when you know you have an issue when that shit starts making sense to you. Like, oh, if I'm stoned and people like me, then I guess I'll just be stoned. And what you're really saying is, I'm fucking struggling, man.
Yeah.
This is all I can do to keep it together. And so that's the point where I look at guys and I'm like, listen, man, I get it. I've been there. I know it. I can help you. And that's all I can help you, and I want to help you. And I'm happy to say that I would say 99% of the guys that I talk to let me help them.
Well, I wanted to ask you too. Also, do you ever notice, Dan, when how you said you came home and then 2 weeks later you were back in Iraq? Is that a sign also where you're noticing it in certain special operators or, just military service members, the want and desire to go back? Does that kind of, in layman's terms, does that kind of fuck with your mind also, where you're like, why do I want to be back here? Where it's like a constant back and forth type of shit. You know what I mean?
No. Actually, believe it or not, it's the opposite.
Really?
I didn't want to be home. Like, I was like, in Iraq and, Afghanistan, I'm like, this is where I belong. This is like, I'm perfectly at home there. That was the hard part for me was coming home. Like, I wasn't one of those guys like, oh man, I'm so excited to come home. I was one of those guys like, holy shit, how do I stay? And I think there's a lot of guys like that who, I don't know how to correlate it other than the fact that I truly believe now, looking back on it, I had a fascination with a heroic death. Right?
Really?
I think so, man. It's the only way that I can figure things out. Maybe it sounds stupid. I don't know.
It doesn't sound stupid at all. It doesn't sound stupid at all, because I think that there's a lot of people, Dan, who would admit that, and I think there's a lot of people who'd be afraid to admit that. But I think I don't think that sounds dumb whatsoever. Especially in the case of what you were doing, I think there's people who wouldn't even be doing that who would admit something like that as well. I don't think it sounds stupid at all.
Yeah, that's the only way I look back on it now. It kind of just makes sense because, I just didn't ever want to be home. Like, so every time somebody got hurt, I'm like, I'll go. I'm ready to go. I wanted nothing to do with being home. Like, and I remember being back in a workup after being in Iraq, being back in a workup going, this is dumb. What are you going to teach me? Like, I was just kicking doors a few days ago, and the guys who were teaching me, you never even kicked the doors. How are you going to teach me anything? And the first chance I got to get out of it, I went back to Iraq,
Yeah.
And, so for me, it was coming home was the hard part, because I just didn't want to be home. I wanted to be there. I was, I think, you got to remember, back in ancient civilization, there were 5 professions, right? There were warriors, craftsmen, fishermen, thieves, prostitutes, thieves, and basically, and people were born into one of those in some shape, form, or fashion, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was born to be a warrior, and being in war was the first time ever I felt like I belonged. Like, I excelled. I got accolades for being a good leader. My guys loved me. I loved my guys. I wanted nothing more to do than to go hunt the enemy. And being home was miserable, you know?
And do you think that is that a fear that the military and government should be looking more in depth with people who are coming on, and ongoing and going to continue come on to the forces, whether it be the Special Forces, the SEALs, Green Berets, or Marines, Army, sailors?
What I think is that they're doing a great job finding the right guys. What I think the only thing they're failing is the fact that they need to get, in the military you have what's called higher tenure. So if you don't make rank at a certain time, they're going to boot you out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think they need to develop something like that for, you've seen too much combat. Like, hey, I mean, there's guys now with 1,000 missions.
Wow.
Like, there's guys now with, 5, 6 Purple Hearts. Like, somebody's got to come in and be like, hey, man, I'm going to be the bad guy here and tell you you've done too much. Like, you've done enough for this country. It's time to go freaking do something other than this. And I know guys, like, when I decided to go work for, I did government work for a while, the guy who hired me was one of the original Delta guys, and he had to be in his late 60s.
Wow.
By the time he hired me. And, he's a legend. He's, I won't say his name. He's a freaking legend. He's everything, but I'm sitting there looking at myself right now going, there's no way I can do this job when I'm in my late 60s.
He was still doing it?
He's still doing it today.
Holy shit, man.
And I look at that and I'm like, the knowledge of leadership and everything. You got all these buffoons out there speaking about leadership on the internet, like, I'll show you how to be a good leader. That guy could be a multi-billionaire talking about leadership. Somebody needs to grab hold of him and go, hey, man, I know you love doing this, but it's time to be a grandpa. And it's time to freaking stay home with the wife and kids. And it's time to go teach other people what's in your brain. And we're doing it for your own damn good. Somewhere somebody has to do that. And I don't think there's enough people willing to do it. If you ever watch the movie Band of Brothers, right?
Yeah.
I want to say it's the last episode where Dick Winters says, hey, I'm volunteering for duty in the Pacific. And his colonel denies his orders. And Dick Winters is like, I don't understand, whatever. He's like, you've done enough. And I think that more of that needs to happen because, guys get out in the military, they're great, they're Master Chiefs, they're 05s, 06, they're like, oh my God, they're rock stars. What people don't understand is what happens to them 1 year after they're rock stars. I'm the one seeing it, right? I'm the one who's seeing it every day of what happens to them. These guys who are the Gold Team Master Chief, the freaking Master Chief of Team Set, you name whatever Master Chief it is, I've probably sent them to treatment. And that's a fact. And there's no denying it. If I was allowed to release the names of the people I've sent, people would be in shock. And I sit there and I go, when is enough? This guy did this many years. Why couldn't 2 years before he get out, we go, hold on, we're going to step back. You're going to go to Bud's as an instructor. You're going to expand the knowledge that you have to the young guys coming in. But really, we just want you to take a break, man.
Sure.
Take a break.
Now, I wanted to ask you, just from your experience and past, do you ever see anything like this amongst different cultures outside even of the the American military?
Yeah. So I just left the job in Silicon Valley, and the job in Silicon Valley that I had, I was the director of recruiting, and we built a privately funded humanitarian team. And so the humanitarian team had people from all walks of life, all branches of the military, and all countries. The members that came to us from Australian military and the British military had the same issues as us in the American military. And the only difference is their culture was even worse than the American. At least here in the U.S., we're basically now saying we need to do something for the guys. At least we're talking about it. There, oh man, that's like taboo. Like, you just don't talk about it.
Really?
Yeah. And, one of the guys on the team, he was one of the guys I'd sent to treatment, super good kid. And he's like me. He's trying to talk to his mates back in England, and they're like, hey, man, we don't have these conversations. And it's bad,
Absolutely, man. I mean, I think that's so interesting, too. I mean, just amongst, people, I'll watch the news, and one thing I guess I know has been going on recently is how in Syria they had the Al-Hol camp and been able to corral members of ISIS and everything, and these people are still going on and on and on about this shit. You know what I mean? So it makes me wonder what is in your head to where it's completely different than maybe somebody else who's saying, you know what, I got to take a step back. Not going against their country whatsoever, but just for their own sake. I got to take a step back. I got to worry about my own mind. I got to worry about myself. I got to make sure that I am going to follow through and continue being the good person that I am. You know what I mean? It's a really weird concept.
Yeah, and like I said, I couldn't do it on my own. I had to be shown, I'm not a religious guy, so I won't get into religion. I'm a spiritual guy. And I believe God gave me a billion messages to stop drinking, to straighten my life out, to do everything that I said I was going to do, and I just didn't listen.
Isn't it weird, too, when you start seeing those signs? I'm a big spiritualist myself. I get it from my mother. And is it not weird when you start seeing that shit, where you start saying to yourself, am I the only one seeing this? This is too odd right now. But you start picking up on it. You know what I mean?
Man, now I can pick up on it easily, but back then I couldn't. And the final message for me was, you're not going to listen? You're not going to listen. Okay, I'm going to give your wife cancer, and I'm going to try to kill her. How do you like those apples, idiot? And that was the final thing for me. And it's funny, my mother-in-law's here right now, and I'm trying not to cry while I'm talking, but we went to go visit her, and she gave me a hug at the airport. She's like, take care of my baby. And I remember hugging her and knowing that I was a complete and utter total failure. I couldn't do anything to help my wife. There's nothing I could do. And I felt like the biggest piece of shit to walk the earth. And there was nothing. I could do nothing other than, I couldn't even go to the damn appointments with her, you know what I mean? It was just so painful.
Yeah.
And that was the final message. And it's funny, now that I know, and now that I've done something about it, all these amazing things have happened. Holy crap, man! I can't even tell you what my personal business is doing. Right? I don't do any advertising whatsoever. I don't do any marketing, nothing. And my business is exploding at the seams.
That's wonderful.
I have 20 SEALs working for me on my payroll, and I've been trying to get this business up and running for freaking 10 years, scraping and digging crap between cracks and tiles. And now I can't, the phone just rings. I'm like, oh my God. And I get it now. It's oh, because you're friendly now, because you're not pissed off all the time, because you're trying to make 7 people smile per day, that energy is expanding, and good things are coming to me, And I want to talk to you real quick about what I've learned about PTSD.
Sure, go ahead.
Everybody has PTSD. Every single person, right? So everybody kind of goes, oh, military first responders have PTSD, and that's true, but everybody has it. And here's what I've learned about PTSD, and this is the only way that it has made absolute sense for me. PTSD is a backpack. And every single time you have an incident in your life, a brick goes in that backpack, right? And your dog dies, a brick goes in the backpack. You break up with a girlfriend, a brick goes in the backpack. 2 or 3 bricks. And some of us are strong, man. We can carry a shit ton of bricks. Some of us aren't very strong, and the bricks break us. And those are the people oh my God, you're weak. You can't believe you're so weak. You can't toughen up. And they look at guys like me, and they're like, dude, you sucked it up for so long. I can't believe you broke. I can't believe it. And I'm like, well, I never really broke. I got close to breaking. Before I broke, I went and did something. And what I found was that I was literally 1 to 3 bricks away from breaking. And I never thought of suicide ever. But I started understanding why guys did it, right? I started understanding, I can see why a guy would commit suicide. That's how dark it got.
Wow.
Where guys would give up, Because you got to think, man, I went from a $1 million business to literally my wife going, I don't even know if we're going to make payroll.
Yeah.
And that was literally overnight. I went from being on the coach of a football team that, they made a freaking movie about us, man. When the game stands tall, we're the guys that beat De La Salle. We broke the streak, right?
Yeah.
Movie about us. We're on ESPN. We're traveling all over the country. And next thing you know, I'm a cheater. Like, hey, you helped a family, you're a cheater. Okay, well, whatever. And then next thing you know, this woman who stood by my side through thick and thin, now she's sick. And it's like, I broke, man. I have no problem saying I broke, and that backpack was so freaking heavy. And when I went and decided to start helping myself, I just dumped that backpack out. I just dumped it, and when I put it back on, there was like 3 bricks left in it. And over the last year, I've taken out 2 more of those bricks. I grew up in a really shitty environment. I stopped speaking to my mom a long time ago, and one of the last things I did before she died was I called her up and I said, I forgive you. You were just a little girl when you had me. You did the best you could. I love you. Every man that ever touched you treated you like crap. No wonder you treated me badly. And I got it. It really, everything made sense to me, and it was just a massive, another brick out of that backpack. And that's what I've learned about PTSD is everybody has it. Everybody has bricks in the backpack. And if you don't do something about it, they're just going to weigh you down.
Wow. That's extremely enlightening too, Dan. That really is. You got to trademark that. That's got to be yours, man, because that deserves to be yours. That is a search and an adventure and finding out somebody's own self, and that is just so incredible. Truly, it is.
Well, what's funny is for years people say, you should write a book, and I'm like, I'm never writing a book, right? Because there's nothing I did in the teams that's worth writing a book. I did nothing. Now I look at them like, I'm probably going to write a book about this. Like, my one chapter will be about the teams, like, hey, I was a team guy, that's the end of the chapter, right? That's pretty much all I did. The next rest of that book will be about how it is just trying to be a man. And then as you think you're doing really, really good, here's when the bricks get put in your backpack. What are you going to do about it? Me talking about therapy and treatment and helping guys. And it's so funny, man. Like, I used to make fun of so much stuff. I'd make fun of yoga. I'd make fun of meditation. You name it, bro. I made fun of vegetarians, vegans. I made fun of every single thing about it. And now here's me. I meditate. I try to do yoga, but my body's so big it sucks. I'm a vegetarian. I drink. I read the Bible. Like all the shit that I used to make fun of, I do it now.
But that's cool at the same time. You're like, yeah, fuck it. I mean that, and I mean at the end of the day, do you ever look back and you say, shit? Like, I mean, was at that point in time, was I really thinking like that, or was it just something that was lingering? You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
Well, it's funny right now. I'm sitting in my poker room. We have a poker room in our house, right?
Yeah.
And on the bar, there's probably $2,000 for really high-end booze. Looking at this booze for years going, man, I can't wait to taste it. I can't wait to taste it. And now looking at it, I'm like, I don't even remember what it tastes like. It's just so, like I look at it, it means nothing to me other than decoration.
Yeah.
It's just weird. Like, it's just not part of my life, and I'm so happy for it. I've been drunk since I was 12 years old, right? I mean, literally, physically, every weekend, every chance that I got, I've been drunk since I was 12 years old.
Sure.
And this is the first time ever in my life I've been sober, like completely sober. I mean, I've been sober, like that's it. And it's, wow, like holy shit, I get so much work done.
I'm sure, man, because it's like it's not a part of your life anymore. And I feel like it's so weird too, like when you become addicted to something, like it's so crazy too, because I remember. I mean, even with me, I admit I was pretty bad. I was smoking that damn Juul quite often, and I was noticing that it was affecting me like tremendously. And I remember all growing up, my dad would always tell me, Matt, you got an addictive personality. You got to watch with what you do. You got an addictive personality. You got to watch what you do. And I used to say, screw it, I'll be fine. Nothing's a problem. And then I started noticing health problems. Not so significant to where I was hospitalized, but I was losing a shit ton of weight. My mind was wandering beyond belief. I stopped doing the podcast. It was just completely. It was, if I was going to the grocery store and I didn't have that thing with me, then I was turning around and I was coming back. And then when I stopped doing it, it was a little bit of a fight, for like the first 3 days. But then I said to myself, what the hell do I need this thing for? You know what I mean? This is crazy, Matt. What do you need this thing for? And honestly, as crazy as it sounds, giving that thing up to where it might have, surrounded my thought process of how I was going to continue to give this thing up after doing it for, 2 years, it started to help me with other problems as well. So, I mean, that might have kind of, consumed my thought process for the time being, but it started to help me with other shit. Once you overcome one thing, kind of like exactly how you said with the bricks, you're dumping everything else out. You're overcoming everything else. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, Matt. You're probably a lot like me. Like, guys will talk to me. They're like, "Hey, man, what do you think about smoking weed?" And everything like that. And I was honest with guys. I'm like, I think there is a medicinal purpose for it, but like anything else, it can be abused.
Oh, I'm the same way.
Right? Like for me, that really, I never abused that part. I just did it because it was like, oh, it makes me friendlier. I abused alcohol, and what I realized was I can't have one drink. I just can't. It's just impossible for me to have one drink. And so the difference is either I'm drinking all of it or I'm just not going to drink any of it. And I think that some people out there, they get to a point where they're whatever their thing of choice is, when it becomes where I'm going to go back home to pick it up because I can't function, it's time to really look in the mirror and go, what else is going on?
Yeah.
What else is going on? And that was the one thing that I was lucky. I took a chance. I decided to go, and what I call therapy is I decided to go take a long break. And during that long break, I was able to look in the mirror for a long, long time and just sit there and go, I am the reason everything happened. Nobody screwed me over. I allowed them to. Nobody cheated me. I left the door open for them to cheat me. And it really closed so many doors and just basically, when you go through this process of like, why did all this happen to me? Okay, this is just the way it is. Okay, I'm better now. Thank you for all this happening to me. I'm a better person. I forgive you. And next thing you know, you're sleeping. And, I wish it was, like an overnight thing, but it was a process. But it's just the greatest thing that ever happened to me. And, like, there were people who, if I even said their name, I wanted to literally get in my car and go freaking murder them. Whereas now, they're not even part of my thought process.
And it's great that you mentioned that too. How you said that you took full responsibility for what was happening. I think, just in society in general, and it'll always happen. A matter of opinion and people having different opinions on certain subjects and individuals. At the end of the day, the person could be young as anything or old, but in my opinion, at the end of the day, that person is going to make their decision. How you said, understanding I allowed somebody to, screw me over. I allowed that person to get me pissed off or this to happen or that to happen. Too many times, just with, work myself, people are making excuses for why somebody did what they did. And at the end of the day, I sit back and I say to myself, well, wait up. That guy's 40 years old and he forgot to do something significant to a job that we're about to do. Why did he do that? Oh, well, somebody's going to make an excuse and say because somebody, of a higher up didn't tell him to do that. Well, wait, why didn't he do that just knowing that he needed to do that? You know what I mean? It's weird. I remember I went to this camp when I was probably in 6th grade. It was in Vermont. And there was an old timer he was a veteran. I forget what branch of the service he was in. But he said, something in the regards of, a true man is somebody who does something without anybody else looking. And that kind of followed me through, man. And my dad always constantly reminded me of him saying that when I was growing up. And it's true. It's true. I think, nobody needs to tell somebody to do something in order for that person to go and do it. Just do it. Just do it. Have the will and have the fight or take the steps that you need to in order to achieve what you need to get done.
Yeah, what's funny is that I've come so full circle with this again is in the beginning of my career, sorry, my wife and son are walking away. The beginning of my career, I was told as a brand new guy, carry a notebook everywhere you go. Well, I have a photographic memory, right?
Sure.
I remember 99.9% of everything. But in my darkness is what I like to call it, my darkness, I couldn't remember shit. I couldn't remember a thing. Well, now, full circle again, I literally walk around with my yellow notepad again. And it is, I'm not, there's just no going to be an excuse for me. Like, I'm not going to allow that to be part of me ever again, because, I'm a human, and I started making excuses, I drink because this person pissed me off, I forgot to do that because you didn't, whatever. I literally carry that yellow legal pad with me everywhere I go, and I write every single thing down, and I put a check mark next to it when I'm done with it. And people are like, hey, you have these tools on your phone. I don't care. Like, this is the way Dan's brain functions, and this is the way Dan is responsible for doing this.
Yeah.
And I agree, man. There's so many things out there about personal accountability, but what I've learned is that you can talk about it all day long. If you don't do it, it's just BS.
Absolutely, because it used to tick me off. There was a situation that happened at work where I did make a mistake, and I owned up immediately. And management team, they jumped to blame themselves, and I stopped them, and it hurt me hearing that they were blaming themselves. And I had said to them, I said, I don't blame you, and I don't blame you. I said, at the end of the day, whether you had taught me how to do that or not, I made that call, I made that decision, accidentally made that decision, but still, that has nothing to do with you. That has to do with myself. I'm not going to put that on somebody else. I'm not going to make an excuse as to why, because that'll just irritate me more, because I'll be like, well, shit, I'm just throwing my shit on somebody else's, plate and saying now I got good reason. It's a weird concept.
No, I agree with you. It's funny, now is the seat that I sit in now is obviously as a company officer, and I was brought in because the company wanted to go in a new direction, but they weren't happy with some of the things going on, right? So the company's taking a big financial hit, and my background is my degree's in finance, and I'm good at understanding how money works, right? Especially when it comes to accounts payable, accounts receivable. And so I came in first and foremost, looked at everything on the budget, found that we were spending $17 million in excess per year on nonsense. So I cut all that nonsense out, right? Just trim the budget down, trim the fat out. And then it came down to why are these other things that the founder of the company is saying why aren't they happening? And what I find is it has nothing to do with accountability, it's indecision. And so now I'm promoting this thing around work. Like, I don't care if you make a bad decision. Just make a decision. If you mess it up, we'll recover from it. But right now what's going on is we have no decision. And I sit there and look at people, I'm like, one, accountability, you can't have accountability to actually doing something, And it's literally, that's the one thing I struggle with all the time at my job. It's like, guys, do something. Like, I don't care if it's a right, wrong, or a different decision. Just make a decision, and then I'll come back and I'll say, here's how to fix it a little better, or this is where you should have done it differently. But if you just do nothing, we get nothing. And I bring that up because when you get into people, sometimes people think I'm accountable. Like, you're accountable because you did nothing, right? Like, I did everything I'm told to do, but that's because you did nothing, right?
Yeah.
You're perfect because you did nothing. You drug your feet. You did it. You pawned it off on somebody else. And I see it all the time, like emails. You see people go back and forth emails, and I'm famous for this. I'll have to send you one time. I literally email people like, stop emailing each other. Get on the phone and call.
Yeah.
Stop this cover your ass nonsense. You're not going to get in trouble under my watch. You're going to get in trouble if you just keep on freaking passing the buck. Do something, make a decision. If you own it, if you mess it up. But damn it, man, do something,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then it comes back. Then if they're doing something, then you can hold them accountable. It's like, okay, I need you to do it a little faster. I need you to do this and this, or do it that way. And if you mess it up, why did you do that? Oh, well, don't lie. Just tell me. Honest, Dan, I didn't know. Okay, then good. That's what I need to know. You didn't know. Now I know Now I know what help you need. Ask me for help. And in this culture in corporate America is that, honestly, what I'm learning is that almost at every level, people don't know what they're doing. So what they do is they just say, instead of saying, I don't know what I'm doing or I don't know the answer, they go, what do you think? or I don't know the answer. People ask me, like, what do you think? I'm like, I think this is what we should do, boom, boom, boom. And every now and then somebody will be like, well, I don't know if that's legal. Are you a lawyer? No. What legal document did you read that in? I didn't read it, I heard. Who told you? And then I literally call a chief legal counsel, like, Karen, what do you think? Is this legal or not legal? She's like, it's illegal if you do it this way. If you do it this way, it's legal. Okay, then let's do it then.
There you go. You got your answer. Just get it done.
These are tiny decisions that save hundreds of thousands of dollars. And, you know, the subject I just brought up to you was a landscaping decision, right? So I'm trying to get landscaping done, and I spend $20,000 a month on landscaping at one hospital. Now times that by 11, right? Massive amount of money. I'm like, why can't we use landscaping therapy? And so, you know, you have equine therapy, you have art therapy, you have physical, you have all these therapies that you can bill for. And I'm like, why can't we do that? Well, you can't do it, it's illegal. So, of course, I ask those questions, same exact questions. I find out it's completely legal, and actually the patients want to do it. They're so bored by sitting in class. Because, you know, when you go to therapy, you sit in class and somebody tells you how to, you know, here's how to be a better human, and it's boring. It's just, who likes school, right? Nobody likes school. You take them out to the garden, you go, okay, we're going to go plant roses, we're going to trim the bushes. They freaking love it, man. They love it. And so I figured out we can bill for it, and we're doing it now. Whereas everybody's like, oh, you can't do it. No, you didn't want to do it. You were scared to do it. And that's a big, massive part of accountability, fear. I know how to not be accountable is by not doing it at all. You know?
That is too true. And I agree with you. I agree with you. That is so incredible. Dan, that's amazing. I'm so happy that everything's going well, my friend.
Yeah, man. I'm doing great. You know, everything's been going great. We just went up to Canada this weekend to do an event. So I still do my personal company, you know, right? Spartan 7 Adventures. We still do these leadership coaching things. And I got to go up there with probably the most outstanding group of men that have ever hired me to do an event. These guys are hazmat waste cleanup guys called Fleck Contracting, right?
Huh.
They go up, they clean asbestos, and they do all this stuff, and they're like, hey, man, we want you to come do a leadership event. We want you to kick the piss out of us. And I was like, all right, well, I'll beat you up for a while. And we put them in I think it's called the Jones River, the Fraser River. We freeze the snot out of them, you know, all night long. We beat them up. The next day, we start doing other, you know, team building events, you know, and I like to use, you know, all the stuff that I learned in the SEAL teams, patrolling, you know, immediate action drills, all these things to teach the event, talk about communication, like how decisive communication is, decisive decision making. And I had so much fun, right? And it's funny is I remember working this same company 2 or 3 years ago and not having fun, man. I just wasn't having fun. Like, it's almost like a job. I was up there with two of my buddies. You know, my buddy Tim Cruikshank, he actually ran for Congress here in the state of Washington, Senate here in the state of Washington.
Oh, wow.
The shit. We had a great time. And I remember coming back and I'm like, that was awesome. Like, I just had so much fun. The clients, you know, the feedback I got from the clients was awesome. And everything, I just don't have any complaints right now. I really wish I had something to complain about. I just don't.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. That's great, man.
Like, my biggest complaint right now is my back is sore from riding in first class too much. What's that tell you? My complaint for the year, you know? Like, oh, man, so, yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, Dan, I'm happy that everything's going so well, and I hope everything continues. I know it will, and that's just so marvelous. I mean, thank you so much for sharing, you know, the second half of your story, and I definitely think you should write that book. I think it's very revolutionary.
Well, yeah, you know, the thing is what I'm finding is that there's so much new treatment available for people, not just veterans, right? Luckily, the veteran community has kind of been the experimentation. Some has been really good, some has not done well, but the thing is, the word needs to get out that these therapies do work, and the traditional therapy of let's just go sit in a room and talk has a place, but it's not the end-all be-all. Drugs, if you're a drug addict and they're giving you buprenorphine to combat the drugs, that's not an answer, right? That's not giving it one drug to combat another drug is not an answer. If you're depressed and you get a drug, that's not an answer.
Yeah.
We have to find out why you were depressed, right? We need to get to the very root cause. And, like, you know, a good example for me is when I look at my PTSD, I always, just because everybody told me, I thought it was from the war. Like, oh, you went to war, therefore you have PTSD. Well, when I went to therapy and I really got a chance to look back on life, man, very, very little was from the war. I would say like 98% of my deep-seated, what I would call mental trauma, was from childhood. You know, and it's funny is I look back on that now and I'm like, wow, you know, I did have a rough life growing up. You know, we were homeless at times. You know, my mom was married 9 times during her life. You know, and imagine all the different characters coming through the door.
Sure.
And like I said, you know, this isn't a knock on my mom. She did the best she could, but those things do affect you when you're a 14-year-old boy and you start fighting grown men because they want you to call them stepdad.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that ain't happening, you know? And, you know, those things affected me, and obviously they gave me fuel. Like, you know, like David Goggins, you know, he's probably the most miserable guy on earth because all he does is talk about is the fuel. I'm so angry all the time, so angry. I'm like, just be happy one day, Dave, right? But, it's the same shit, right? That all those things gave me fuel to become a SEAL. And now what I've really come to a point is that my SEAL team days are over. They will never, ever return, right? And so I can't have that fuel anymore. It's time to put that fuel in a closet, close those books, and start opening new books. And the biggest thing I keep telling myself is the last 20 years of your life were good, but they weren't great. I want the next 20 years of my life to be great because I'm very realistic on how long I think I'll live. Nobody in my family, no male in my family has ever lived past the age of 70. So I'm going to be realistic and go, okay, I got about 20 more years left on Earth. I need to make these 20 years the fucking greatest 20 years I can make them, you know? And that's really what gives me fuel on a daily thing, you know? And I just want to make sure that the guys who are listening, people who are listening, understand that there is help out there. It does work, that, you know, there are people who actually do care, and if there's an issue, don't hide it. There are people who actually want to hear about it, you know.
Dan, real quick, just before we sign off, any type of contact information you can share for listeners?
Yeah. So basically, American Addiction Centers, we have a 24-hour helpline there, contact line. We have a full call center they can call into anytime. My personal email is dan@spartan7adventure.com, and it's Spartan with a number 7 adventure, no S, .com. They can reach me there. And yeah, man, I'm here to help guys. I'm here to help anybody who I can help. I'm here to raise as much money as I can for the Navy SEAL Fund, which has been a big contributor to guys going to therapy. Navy SEAL Foundation, I support both of those. You know, that's it. I'm pretty easy, open book. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram under my name, or Taco Actual, Spartan 7, you know. So yeah, it's all there if you ever want to reach out to me.
You're the man, Dan. You're the man. Thank you so much for being on Patriots Corner again, man.
Hey, thank you, man. It's a real pleasure being on a podcast with somebody who I actually like. You know, sometimes I get on them, I don't like the people.
Well, I'm happy you like me. Thanks, man.
I enjoy talking to you, and, you know, I wish you the best of luck. And anytime you want to do this again, just let me know.
Right on. Dan, thank you so much for being on Patriots Corner, and I will make sure that everything is uploaded to my Instagram as well, so they know where to call if anybody does want to get a hold of you. Absolutely.
All right, Matt. Well, I appreciate it, man. Have a great day. Happy Thanksgiving.
You too. Take care, Dan.